There are some objects in this world that carry evil inside them. A cursed painting, a haunted doll, a forgotten photograph. But in the winter of 2003, a single silver ring destroyed an entire family. Police called it a tragic accident, but the final survivor left behind one chilling message before disappearing forever. If you ever find the ring, don't put it on. Tonight's story is called The Ring. Part 1. The Discovery. 24-year-old Ethan Cole worked the night shift at a storage warehouse outside the small town of Raven Hill. The job was boring, lonely, and quiet. Most nights, Ethan spent hours scrolling through his phone while rain hit the metal roof above him. But one stormy night changed everything. At around 11:30 p.m., the warehouse manager asked Ethan to clear out an old, abandoned storage unit before morning. Unit 46. Nobody had opened it in over 20 years. The lock was covered in rust. As Ethan forced the door open, a terrible smell escaped from inside. Dust covered everything. Old furniture, broken lamps, rotten boxes. And in the center of the room sat a small, black jewelry box. Ethan opened it carefully. Inside rested a silver ring. It looked old, expensive. Strange symbols were carved around the metal. For some reason, Ethan couldn't stop staring at it. Then, suddenly, the warehouse lights flickered. A loud bang echoed somewhere behind him. Ethan quickly turned around. Nothing. The warehouse was empty. When he looked back down, the ring was gone from the box. His heart skipped. Then he realized it was already sitting in the palm of his hand. Cold, heavy, almost alive. Part 2. The First Night. Back at his apartment, Ethan searched the symbols online but found nothing. No language matched them. No history. No explanation. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the power suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the apartment. Then Ethan heard it. A soft knocking sound. 3 knocks, coming from inside his bedroom closet. Knock, knock, knock. Ethan grabbed his phone flashlight and slowly approached the closet door. The knocking stopped. For several seconds, complete silence filled the apartment. Then, a woman whispered softly from inside the closet. "Put it on." Ethan froze. His chest tightened. Slowly, nervously, he opened the closet. Nothing was there, just hanging clothes. But resting on the floor was the silver ring. Ethan stared at it in fear, then laughed nervously. Okay, this has to be stress. Trying to calm himself down, he picked up the ring and slid it onto his finger. The second the ring touched his skin, the apartment became ice cold. And somewhere nearby, a woman began crying. The woman in white. Ethan barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of someone standing in darkness. A woman with long black hair covering her face, wearing an old white dress soaked in water. The next morning, Ethan noticed something disturbing. The ring wouldn't come off, no matter how hard he pulled. Soap didn't work. Oil didn't work. Nothing worked. His finger had already turned pale beneath the metal. At work, things became worse. Machines randomly shut down around him. Lights flickered whenever he walked past them. And several workers claimed they saw someone standing behind Ethan, a woman in white, watching silently. That night, Ethan returned home exhausted. As he entered the apartment, he noticed water dripping from the ceiling. Drip, drip, drip. A wet trail stretched across the floor toward his bedroom. Ethan followed it slowly, his hands shaking. The bedroom door creaked open by itself, and standing in the corner was the woman, motionless, her wet hair hanging over her face. Ethan couldn't breathe. The woman slowly lifted one trembling arm and pointed directly at the ring. Then every light in the apartment exploded. The following days became a nightmare. Ethan stopped answering calls, stopped sleeping. Dark shadows moved through his apartment at night. Whispers echoed through empty rooms. And every mirror in the apartment showed something terrifying. The woman standing behind him, even when he was alone. Then came the dreams. Every night at exactly 2:13 a.m., Ethan dreamed of drowning in complete darkness while someone held him beneath the water. And every time he woke up, his bed was soaking wet. One evening, Ethan finally visited the town library searching for answers. An old librarian listened carefully to his story. The moment Ethan showed her the ring, her face turned white. "You need to get rid of that immediately." "You know what this is?" Ethan asked desperately. The librarian nodded slowly. 30 years ago, a woman named Eleanor Voss disappeared near Ravenhill Lake. She was accused of murdering her husband. But before police could arrest her, she vanished. The librarian leaned closer. A week later, her body was found underwater. Ethan swallowed hard. "What does that have to do with the ring?" The old woman whispered. "They cut that ring from her finger before she died." The librarian handed Ethan an old VHS tape from the archive basement. "There's something on this tape police never released." That night, Ethan played the tape on an old television. Static filled the screen. Then shaky footage appeared. A police officer stood beside Ravenhill Lake during a storm. The recording crackled badly. Then the camera suddenly focused on a woman standing waist-deep in the water. Eleanor Voss. Her head tilted unnaturally, hair covering her face. The officer shouted at her to come forward. Slowly, Eleanor raised one hand and pointed directly at the camera. The video distorted violently. Then came the final frame. For less than 1 second, another figure appeared behind the officer. A tall woman in white, smiling. The tape ended abruptly. At that exact moment, someone knocked on Ethan's apartment door. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Ethan looked through the peephole. Nobody was there. But written across the hallway wall in dripping water were the words, "Return it." That night, the whispers became unbearable. Voices echoed from every corner of the apartment. "Return it. Return it. Return it." The ring suddenly burned against Ethan's skin. Black veins spread across his hand. The television turned on by itself. Static filled the room. Then, the woman crawled out of the screen. Her limbs bent unnaturally. Water poured from her dress onto the floor. Ethan screamed and stumbled backward. The woman moved slowly toward him. Every light flickered violently. The walls began dripping black water. Ethan desperately grabbed a kitchen knife and tried cutting the ring off his finger. Nothing happened. The woman stopped directly in front of him, only inches away. Her face still hidden behind wet hair. Then, finally, she whispered, "Mine." Ethan ripped the ring from his finger with all his strength. Blood covered his hand. He threw the ring across the apartment. The woman instantly disappeared. Silence filled the room. Ethan collapsed to the floor, breathing heavily. For several seconds, everything was quiet. Then, suddenly, a wet hand touched his shoulder from behind. The next morning, police found Ethan's apartment flooded. The television was still playing static. Furniture floated through the rooms. But Ethan was gone. Only one thing remained: the silver ring, resting perfectly dry on the kitchen table. Police sealed the apartment permanently. But according to local rumors, people still see lights flickering inside late at night. And sometimes, if you stand outside the building after 2:13 a.m., you can hear a woman whispering from inside, "Put it on." Outro. If you enjoyed tonight's story, subscribe to Dark Truths for more terrifying horror stories every week.